Yo, what's happening, everybody? I'm gonna go live. We're gonna talk with Jonas about natural hygiene, history, and how he got into it. He's been in the game for a while, a lot longer than me. So I think we got a lot to learn from other people who have been in this game. So just give a minute, and we'll get Mr. Jonas in here. Boom. Hey, what's happening, Jonas?
Hello. Natural health design, right? Or
Well, zine, magazine.
zine. Yeah, zines are really important, like anarchist zines. Like, I'm just juicing my grapefruits right now. Like, I have a whole case of grapefruits that I collected from the trees, right? And oranges.
Oh man, so tell people where you are in the world.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. It's like a city. We're this big valley. I gotta get the lighting right, huh? Let me see where the best place to put the camera is. I'm dehydrating some grapes into raisins. I just got a whole bunch of grape tomatoes dehydrated into dehydrated tomatoes. They're in, yeah, but
Okay, cool.
they're
So
really.
let me ask you something. Do you eat cooked food?
No, I haven't eaten cooked food in a long time. I decided in 2008 when I was at a vegan potluck at this place called the Supreme Master Ching Hai's Loving Hut, the vegetarian house it's called. And there's more vegan restaurants in the world owned by this lady who considers herself the reincarnation of Buddha. And she has a spiritual movement called the Quinn Lee or something like that. It's a yoga school, and she's the Buddha. So, and everybody's the Buddha. That's her philosophy. And she has a restaurant that's amazing. And the guy's like, I went there for a celebration with other vegans from a meetup group. And I was like, because I've been going to these meetup groups for a while, these raw food meetup groups. And this guy was there on Thanks Living. His name was Jeff, and he worked at Rawsome Cafe in General Strength in Tempe, Arizona. There's this co-op that we used to have. I was a board director even. I got elected once. but yeah, he was eating nothing. And I was like, why aren't you eating anything? Like, well, there's nothing I can eat here. Like, what do you mean? They got everything fake. They got fake chicken, fake beef, fake fish, whatever you want. It's the vegetarian house. You know, the fake soy meat, everything.
Right.
And he was like, no, I'm only eating whole, fresh, and ripe. And he told me about Doug Graham and 80-10-10. And so I went home and I Googled that. And Amazon suggested me this book called Herward Carrington, Man's Natural Diet. And it had articles in there from 1800s from this guy named Russell Thatcher Troll, who was associate of a guy named Isaac Jennings and Sylvester Graham. And he was speaking before the Smithsonian. And after his speech, half of the country went from believing what they used to think about germs and disease to understanding natural hygiene. In 1800s, there was more spas and sanitariums than there was hospitals. Like, people
Yeah.
understood this of healing through, and this all comes through a philosophy from a guy named Pythagoras in, I guess, Rome, Greece area, on an island in Sicily, and all over. He had 9 schools throughout the Middle East, and he learned through his journeys from an oracle of Delphi from Egypt that to do nothing, intelligently do nothing, just take a rest. That's what temple rest is. So that's what people are doing at, say, Tanglewood or True North or Goldhammer's place. And Bachman, yeah, they're
Well,
they're
and
fast.
let me say a word about sanitariums. I think we have a connotation from the word sanitarium, like it means like a insane asylum. But the
Sounds
word
like that. Yeah.
sanitarium has the root sane in it. So san means to bring back into alignment, into normalcy, into health. So
Like
so
out
yeah,
of alignment.
sanitariums could be places where you could water fast. You could be supervised by professionals doing water fasting, sitting in sun, fresh air, basically just resting. And so that is the idea behind natural hygiene, right? Is to basically let
Well,
the body
to
cure
follow
itself.
nature, like one of the best natural hygienists in the world is Florence Nightingale. There's women in this, like Mary Grove Nichols, and is another one, and Ellen G. White is another one. And there's a lot of women. This is like almost like a women's liberation movement in America that this happened about, because it is going back to the fact that women were the oracles of Delphi that told Pythagoras what to do, and we're hominids. All hominids other than human beings are matriarchal, not patriarchal. So we lost our goddesses by having them murdered through myths of the Assyrians called Marduk and Tiamat. And so we've really been off track with our society in general, because
Hmm.
what is more important than following the rules of nature? When Russell Thatcher Troll laid out the 16 laws of orthopathy, which means correct suffering, natural hygiene, Isaac Jennings is the one who came up with this because he was reading all this stuff. And, when my dad, actually some of the earliest things about this was my dad was in the Navy, and he was one of those guys who was like, oh, I'm going to get drafted, so I'm going to join anyways. And so he joins the Navy and to get a better position, and they gave him a language translation. They taught him how to translate Arabic, and they put him in Cyprus. So he's spying on the Lebanese and the Syrians and whatever. And he got out, and he went to Turkey and Iran and Afghanistan, and he has all these stories to tell. I only met him when I was 13. But he found these people named Ellen Haas and Stephen Haas. Ellen and Stephen Haas ran a raw vegan cafe in Philadelphia and West Philly called Temple Beautiful. And if you look it up, like Google, you'll find it, but they burned down. And they were students of a lady named Anne Wigmore and Viktoras Kovinskis, who were from Lithuania, but they taught at a school that they called Hippocrates Health Institute in Boston.
Which still exists.
And they were burned out too, actually. No, they're all been burned. Like, people have been persecuted. Even Sylvester Graham, if he toured the country trying to tell people about how to heal the body through nature, and even Christianity is just an analogy of natural hygiene, stolen from the myths of Pythagoras, and it's just philosophies and ideas of this amazing groups that were really equal between men and women, and they had a different way of being, and like, can you imagine a Colosseum and you're all hanging out and just having philosophy together? And you're hanging out unless you did a 40-day fast. So everybody does the 40-day fast to get into the mathematicoi, what they were called.
So you mentioned Sylvester Graham, Isaac Jennings. Does Doug Graham come from the Sylvester Graham, the House of Graham?
Oh yeah, for sure. Doug Graham. So I like tracing everything backwards. So Doug Graham would come from T.C. Fry, and T.C. Fry came from Herbert Shelton, and Herbert Shelton came from John Henry Tilden, and John Henry Tilden came from these other three guys who I just mentioned, Trawl, Jennings, and Graham.
Okay, and let's talk about their books, because the 80-10-10 diet by Douglas Graham is what got me sort of like blew my mind into, oh, wow, maybe humans are frugivores. Because, Jonas, I've only been in this game of eating raw food for 2 years. I mean, I've eaten raw food my whole life. I enjoy fruit, but as far as making a primary staple in my diet, I've only been doing that for about 2 years. So you've been in the game a lot longer. But so we got
the 2008. When I found that out in 2008, and I've been going to these raw food potlucks since 2000 itself, right? When I first moved to Phoenix, I moved here because I wanted to go to college, and I was researching in Philadelphia at my dad's in Philly, where am I going to school? And I said, I can go 2 years, go to school called Advanced Technology, get my bachelor's, and be done, have a 3D animation, go to Hollywood, make movies, do fancy stuff. That's what I did. But I just stayed doing architecture and making virtual reality of what it's going to be like before it's finished. It's called visualization. So I work with all the engineers and the designers and the architects and all these. I worked on the top of a skyscraper for years and years, and then it was 10 years I did that. So it's like when the economy crashed, I just had to change, and I decided, oh, look at all these date trees everywhere. Why are these, like, check it out, there's palm trees in the distance, right? It's like, why are there dates on all these trees, and like nobody's messing with them? So I said, I got to learn how to pick these dates. I got to climb these trees. I got the wrong equipment first. They were just ankle spikes or whatever. I needed ones that are full leg. And then I, upgraded them to make them better holders and stuff. And I'm going to get aluminum ones soon. But I started climbing these trees, and I started learning the methods it's been 5 years now that I was doing this, climbing the palm trees and harvesting. Because my friend, I don't know if you know the transitioning breatharian. His name is Jeffrey. But he's somewhere on the internet. He's out there. He's cool as hell. But he's got MS, so he's got like multiple sclerosis. He has to eat very minimally just to not have the symptoms from his disease. And he showed me where all the citrus trees in Mesa were in North Phoenix. I was like, wow, there's citrus trees everywhere. There's more canals in the city that I live in, 300 miles of canal to irrigate the whole valley, which is like 100-mile wide valley of all people were growing things in the desert very easily, I guess, very long. But now it's all housing, and it all turned into like condos and track houses, and we are the fastest growing in the country still, so. So you're harvesting a lot of free food from your community. Oh yeah, like, I'm putting prickly pear everywhere I go, and I see cactus. Like, I can even show you something else. I don't know who's interested in this or not, but it's illegal. I just planted a seed I found, and I was, look at that, man, that's cool as hell. It just grew, and it's like a big old cola. but I got cactus. Let me see out the front here. I can show you if I walk towards. There's like I plant a row of cactus. Dragon fruits, prickly pear, and Peruvian apple are the three ones that make the highest fruit yield. So what I'm doing is I'm getting pieces of all those cactus, and I'm basically cloning them the same way you do other, like most people are upset about cloning and grafting, but I think cloning and grafting is really necessary to do. You can't, a hybrid is actually a positive benefit, and most people just want hybrid one-offs. Like, I don't want the same hybrid to clone and graft itself, like a Valencia or a Navel. Those are just cloned oranges put onto ugly oranges. But every time it fails, the ugly orange will come out. So here's prickly pear right here. Some purple prickly pear, some green prickly pear. Can you see it? I don't know.
Cool.
And
Awesome.
I got the dragon fruits that I started finding them in neighborhoods. I'm like, oh, dragon fruits. They don't grow as big as they do in the tropics, but they still get really big. See, it's hard to see the picture, but dragon fruits, and that's Peruvian apple. Those are century. That's like yucca. I mean, like and this is more Peruvian apple and more. Just I put them everywhere in the neighborhoods, though. Wherever I can go, I just plant little pieces of those between the streets and the sidewalk. And there's all these open areas that no one cares about. And it looks pretty and everybody likes it. And then there'll be more fruit every year. That's the plan.
Well, that's amazing. I think people are worried right now about the supply chain shutdowns, the economy, the ability to access food is going to be it's going to be harder as we go forward potentially.
Like no one will ever starve if they know what that tree is right there. That's the Washingtonia robusta. That's the palm tree that nobody harvests. Nobody does anything. It just makes a mess. It drops these little black berries. But those little black berries, they taste sweeter than honey, and they were the staple food of the Native Americans in the Coachella Valley. So they grow everywhere now ornamentally, but they're still food, but nobody uses it, you know? The same with prickly pear. I'm the only one harvesting prickly pear and juicing it and making fruit leather and selling it at the farmer's market. I put carob, I grind it up, and I mix it with the prickly pear juice, and I dehydrate it on the dehydrator like I'm doing the tomatoes or whatever. Little bags, dollar bags I call them, or 5 bags of carob, like carob powders.
Cool.
And like pounds of dates. Like since the inflation's happening and everything doubles in prices. So you gotta go along with it. I just wish everybody's wages and food stamps and everybody's benefits would double, but they're not.
Wait, so let me ask you, how much what percentage of the food you eat is sourced basically foraged or grown or picked yourself?
Well, the first thing I started doing in 2008, I went to the Mexican market. The Mexican market, we have these things called Mexican markets here, and we're really close to Mexico. Arizona's a hub city, so everything's got to go through Phoenix to get south, east, north, or west. Everything comes through here. So it's like the truckers and everybody, well, like my stepbrother's a trucker, and he drives through here, see my nephew and niece. But so like there's just so much, like how much of the percent? But yeah, since those Mexican markets exist, there's Asian markets, Mexican markets, and Arab markets, and they are the ones who have more of the international, tropical, delicious fruits. And I always wanted to get those. When I started doing it, I just went there, spent $30. I had a whole week worth of food. If you look back on my Instagram, I got like 9,000 pictures on here. I have pictures of my tables and all the times I bought all the different arrangements of fruit, and it looks all delicious, and it was good. But I'm slowly upping the percent of how much. I mean, last year, since I went through the windshield and broke my legs, I couldn't climb the trees. But I still have other friends who the trees are at, and they gave me a lot of the dates. So I had dates still. So I only have a few more left to sell. So I want to actually keep myself to eat because I love them so much. They're called the Black Sphinx, and they're wet dates. Like most people think, oh, dates are dried food. Well, actually, dates are not dried until you dry them. Like I'm drying these tomatoes, or like if you didn't ferment or dry things, we would probably starve on Earth. Like North Koreans make kimchi. They can keep their starchy vegetables edible and stored. Otherwise, through the winter, what would you do? You'd have to move south. Everybody had to migrate on Earth. That would probably happen naturally. Like if we get back to more of a primitive way of living, we're going to move north, south all the time and have fun and diversify. And all these language barriers, I mean, it's all a mess, man.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So I want to get back to the books and the authors in one sec, but I just want to ask one more thing about the food. Can you show us one more time the grapefruits you got, and then show us your dehydrator and what you got going on in there?
This is a case of grapefruits. There's so many grapefruit trees. The cool thing about grapefruits, they last until about September, and they get sweeter on the trees. Most people get grapefruits and think, oh, grapefruit's a sour fruit. No, grapefruit turns sweet, just like a pomelo. It tastes just as delicious if you leave it late. And then these oranges are all Valencias. The navel season's over. Navel starts in November, and Valencia starts in March. So like from November to March, navel, and then blood oranges too, of course. And then Tangelos are like all around all the time. I love Tangelos. They're like softer and sweeter. And
so I had never had a pomelo until about 6 months ago, and it was the most mind-blowing fruit I've ever had. I love pomelos, and it was actually at an Asian market that I found it. You got to go to the Asian markets, the Arab markets, the Spanish markets, like all the smaller little joints. Like Whole Foods ain't gonna have all the good stuff, right?
Like the farmer's market have it, yeah. But yeah, because I was bringing it there, right? So it's like I was doing that at the farmer's market. I went to this thing called the community table, where everybody like can put an application and you give 10% to the table, but they're selling your stuff for you. So I brought my dates and all the citrus and the fruit leather. I want to do that again, and I can apply again. And I think I'm going to start that back up, but we'll see. But they moved the market, so like everything's in gentrification, they call it, where all the rich people are moving in and building it up really fast.
Yeah.
It's really pretty and it's really nice and it's cool to have all these new people. And so many people, like my raw food group on the internet, 29 people a day are joining. I'm like, whoa, this is blowing up. I watched all Chef AJ's raw food interviews. Doug Graham, of course, killed it everywhere there. And like Rosalind Grubin's even better than Doug Graham, and she did great too, right? And then I watched he had the lady Timothy Trader, that guy. He is one of Doug Graham's associates who worked with him since way back in the 70s, right? So everybody's been doing this raw food movement and known about this Pythagorean thing about Pythagoras and these philosophers and Benjamin Franklin. Like I said, my father, I got astray with the story, but I was trying to get to how my father told me about Benjamin Franklin was a fruitarian and he only ate fruit. And I'm like, because we used to always go to the Benjamin Franklin Museum in Philadelphia. That's what he took me in the weekend, and the Italian market and what's the one, the Quakers or the Amish market. Yeah. So you get all these things. We do all these. And I learned in like what I wanted to do at the Benjamin Franklin Institute, all the 3D animation and graphics room. That was a cool room. And my dad telling me that story, I was like, I remembered that. And I was like, oh, I gotta look that up. And like, yeah, it's a society. All the founding fathers founded our nation on this temperance idea of using, beyond, orthopathy, they call it. Orthopathy means the correct suffering or the right way of living. It's a Greek hybrid. Yeah. And then people came up with natural hygiene to be better explaining it. But even people don't understand that. Hygiene, you mean like a dentist? And you're like, no.
Yeah, so what is natural hygiene? It's I'll give a short answer. I'll let you expand on it. Hygiene, we've always known, is like cleaning the outside of your body, right? Brushing your teeth, cleaning your ears, washing your hands. But to me, natural hygiene is cleaning the inside of your body as well as the environment.
Cleans itself. Like our cells do the action. What we put in our body reacts to. It's not that anything acts upon us. And anything we put in our body, my mom has always said this, like no meat, no TV, no sugar, no processed sugar. But I kept learning and teaching my mom. My mom followed right along with me. My mom had irritable bowel syndrome. So if she didn't have a bad stomach and couldn't digest food, and then met my father from the Navy, running out of the Navy through Belgium, took her to America. She ran away from her family, but she mostly grew up in the Congo. So she had a really good jungle baby diet, moved to Belgium, eat crappy waffles and pancakes and sugar, and it's called pannenkoek, but it's disgusting. And then like people are getting sick from it, and they drink beer when they're 15 in Belgium and Europe too. Like it's called harm reduction, so people don't go to harder drugs because they poison them early with beer and get them all addicted. And everybody's dying of alcoholism, right? So it's not pretty. It's like people are really muted, and everybody European, like the amount of stuff they put in themselves to numb themselves, it has, and it's not pretty to see. It's the numbers are there.
Yeah.
And I know that, and I've always, every year I had to go to the principal's office to get it's called a religious accommodation. I even joined the Christian Science Church so I can have the official, because they got lawyers in all 50 states to defend anybody from the government imposing medication on them. Because medicine's against that. Medicine is just poison. That's what hygiene is, the opposite of medicine. Or they sometimes call it healthology, and everybody kind of picks their own names, but they all use the same idea, coming from this Pythagoras learning from the Egyptian gods. And imagine how much longer before the Egyptians and the cultures that we've been part of that have always kept this knowledge about how to live in nature. That's all we know. Like that post I put in that not fruitarian group, it's like we've only had 99% of what we have in stores for the last 100 years. More than that, we've never had any of that. We only 1% of what's in the store has ever existed.
Yeah, you look around the store outside of the produce aisle, and it's just packaged, packaged everything with like, in plastic with just the craziest ingredients that did not exist years ago. And, you look at the Romans, Roman statues of like beautiful, picturesque people. It's like they were primarily fruit eaters.
Oh, they had all orgies and they're all bisexual. The money's got people having anal sex on it. They're open to everything. They're like, we're having orgies. We're chilling. That's our life, Cicero or whatever, all that stuff, like that's my favorite class was humanities in high school, but they took me out of it and forced me into government economics to learn about the Federal Reserve and how we're all living on a fake imaginary system of debt to the whole world and everybody's supporting us and we're all destroying ourselves by using up the resources that are invaluable,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the ants are going to look at us like, what's wrong with those humans? They're like the dinosaurs of us,
Yeah, that is a story or maybe another conversation. I do want to touch back on Doug Graham, the 80-10-10 diet. That book really explains how humans are frugivores. He does take T.C. Fry's teachings. And
101 lessons. That's the best book to look up any reference because T.C. Fry includes everything before him into 101 lesson book. Right. It's just a 3,000-page book, and you just search for any term in there, you'll find the answer.
Yep.
Really awesome.
And I'm going to post, people can just type in terrain.wiki in the internet, and there's like an online version that'll come up. This is T.C. Fry's Life Science Health System. It's 101 lessons. It's 2,300 pages or something like that. And it's fantastic. So, yeah, Doug Graham takes the teachings from this and kind of aggregates them into something shorter and easier to read. But he also includes a lot of a lot of other science that he came across and analyzed that basically backs up and supports this fruit-based, carbohydrate-based diet, and it's raw carbohydrates. It's not.
Did you see him destroy? Did you see him destroy McDougal the other day on Chef AJ's program? He
No.
made his own video about how we're never starchivores. The starch solution is actually the starch pollution. He writes a book I have in here somewhere called Grain Damage. It's an amazing book. It explains how we don't have there's like things in grains we don't have the digestive enzymes to digest. Once we heat things, we can't digest them. That's why proteins are the number one cause of disease, because they're stuck in people's gut, rotting and fermenting. We don't need that. Everything is in a chains of enzymes. Enzymes are chains of amino acids. That's why the top, like Milo, is the strongest man. The strongest men are Russian and German right now. They're all raw vegans too. And it's because that's how you get strong. You overeat and you do max reps. You'll do it with fresh food, and everybody knows that from all through history, from the Greeks on, like you showed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fresh carbohydrates in the form of fresh juice and fruit is the most efficient fuel for the body.
Yeah.
It's absorbed right away. It doesn't need to use excess energy to break it down, and then it doesn't create excess waste, which is sort of. And then what you mentioned Tilden. You mentioned John Henry Tilden. He wrote this book.
Yeah, he was amazing. He wrote a book called Toxemia
Explained, which I did a talk on that, and I'm going to do a longer one. But his whole thesis and a lot of the ideas behind natural hygiene are that you basically create a lot of waste by eating inappropriate food, and if you don't give your body time to get rid of it, that's just going to fester and putrefy and create basically a hotbed for bacteria, and it's just gonna pollute your body. So.
Bacteria are our friends. They're our cleanup crew. Germs are there. They're our buddies. When I learned that germs, bacteria, and viruses, I was a DNA scientist in high school. I won like first place at Penn State for my science project. And I had modified E. coli to be immune to penicillin. And I was like, oh yeah, everybody like, oh yeah, and I won. but then I went to Santa Fe High. And when Santa Fe High, I was part of Los Alamos, the Human Genome Project. We mapped the human genome. And that was cool, But it's like we know all this stuff. It's like a map. Once we figure out more things, we add it to our science. Like the no salt, no sugar, no oil pleasure trap people. I like those people and their idea of eating some, steamed and fried, not fried, but steamed and boiled foods. I called myself at one time a boilitarian. When I learned about the acrylamide study from Sweden, how when you heat carbohydrates, it turns to a carcinogen called acrylamide, which is like a plastic. And I was like, wow, I want to avoid that. French fries have 300 parts per million. Water's regulation is 0.01 parts per million, as safe from the EPA by OSHA, because my godmother was an OSHA agent. So I was like, I'm never going to touch that stuff again. And then when I made that decision, these Rastas told me when I was 15, go vegan when you're 20. And I was like, they watched these movies called Blood of the Beast, 1949, Slaughterhouse of France, and The Story of O. And they made the connection that humans controlling other animals' sexuality is phallic. It's not our business to breed other animals. That's our business to breed with each other and be healthy. But to control the breeding of others, that's because the movie Story of O is all about a woman in France, how she'd been dominated in a dominatrix situation, abused, and then she became an abuser herself. And they kind of made that highlight between the controlling and the slaughter of horses in this factory, which was nasty. And I was like, I never seen that. And I was like, oh shit. Once you see something like that in Earthlings, and it shocks you, a lot of people don't have that. They're so sociopathic and so desensitized, they can't even relate to the death of things, and they justify it any way they can. I need this for this. I need that for my bones. I'm like, no, the opposite is happening. They're inorganic minerals and organic minerals. And once you heat something, they become inorganic, and your body has to be stolen from to get them out rather than gaining from them.
Yeah, and I think Earthlings, you mentioned Earthlings, I tell everyone to watch that. I mean, if they're curious about why they maybe shouldn't eat animals, because I think a lot of people just aren't aware of the torture and the terrible living conditions and death conditions they're contributing to by buying meat and by eating it. And I know, it might be a stretch for some people to think that the reason we're seeing a lot of psychopathy in the world, as far
people
as
are killing each other right now, a lot of gun shooting, all these kids are just going crazy and murdering, right? It's every day there's a new one.
Let me just connect that idea from, we're seeing a lot of psychopathy to, well, we're also enabling the slavery and the murder of animals by buying meat and eating meat. So as long as we're buying and eating meat, we're contributing to slavery and murder.
And torture, it's disgusting.
And since the universe is a self-reflecting thing, the energy that we create is going to come back. So I'm not saying that people who eat meat are directly responsible for mass shootings, but there is a connection in the universe somehow, energetically.
Oh yeah, that's definitely been proven, man, how much healthier you get mentally when you eat fresh foods and you lose those blockages and those toxins. Like I made a chelating drink for my girlfriend because she's exposed to some lead paint. And yeah, I gave a friend some of it, and it immediately kicked in his body a healing crisis, an acute healing crisis, and it came out of nowhere. He didn't know where it came from. But I'm like, oh shit, I should have maybe given him a little bit of chelating drink because that made it activated in him. It activated that process. So it's actually healthy to go through, but you got to totally rest. And most people think of they're going to take medicine. Oh, go get me a Gatorade and I'll drink that. I need sugar to be healthy. No, you need to be empty and like just rest totally. Like your body has a lot of buildup in it if you're toxic. I'm toxic.
Yeah. So what?
It was like a homecoming. I was like, oh wow, this is the way I want it to be always. Why wouldn't I do that? I just one day changed and I never looked back because I don't want to lose the uncanny benefits. I don't want eye boogers and bumps on my skin and stink body odor or foul anything, So I love it. I'm out here in
that's
the
a huge
104 degrees.
Sorry. Eye boogers, body odor, and skin issues. Those do get cleaned up when you remove waste and inappropriate fruits in the body. Can you attest to that?
I was eating quinoa and yams and sweet potatoes. I was on that boilitarian thing since 2002. So I was really strict about that. I was like, this is a big deal. Like I try to tell other people. I'm always trying to share information, but people are like, you're right about everything, but I just can't do it. Everybody just gives up on themselves. It's sad. That's the problem. People have to love themselves to make a choice that's beneficial to themselves and others. And if people don't really see that, it's like a lack of our society of an empathy. We're so disconnected, and it's purposeful. I've seen it, like through everything that happens. They just have a narrative, and they try to spew it and make us dance, But we have our own story. We can like escape it. My mom's an escape artist. She's a runner, I call her. She ran to Costa Rica, planted a fruit forest. She's got 30 acres of 7 years. I mean, it's like, wow.
Very cool. So what other books helped you come into the knowledge that you today possess?
I don't know. I have stuff like Endgame too. This Endgame stuff from Jensen, and there's a Humanure Handbook. It's about how civilization will collapse. And even in that Federal Reserve class, they're telling you it's going to fail, and it's going to be on your generation. It fails, and you're like, oh shit! They're telling us it's going to be a bad news, and it's going to be on us because everybody else is not taking responsibility. The generations before us didn't pass down to us what they used and they acquired to be where they are. So like a lot of knowledge, like anarchist books for sure. That's like here's the Humanure Handbook itself right here. This is a free book on the internet. You can download the PDF. It's about how to manure and like everything starts with soil. Like this Dorit lady who called me the other day wants me to talk at California and go down there on the 11th. I'll totally do it if she needs me there. But like even like Passionate Lover book, like I like to collect all the mass religion books about the 7-day and the Christian Science and all the Buddhist versions and all that stuff, and then I put them in contrast with the most atheist opposite stuff like the God delusion, everything like Dawkins and all that stuff. And I have two crates, one crate of religious stuff, one crate of non-religious stuff, But that was good too, to have a good perspective and a broad range of understanding between all the other people's understandings that came before us, so we can make a future, choice to have the outcomes that benefit us. Like a lot of people are like, don't think about the past, don't think about the future, only focus on the present. And I'm like, no, I'm about egoism. I am about the individual being successful and other individuals being successful too. I'm not, I definitely would call it America First or whatever they want to call it, and it's gonna blow up big because people don't want this international domination of tyranny. That's the best book in the world right here, man. The Ego and His Own by Max Stirner. And the real name of the book, actually, is The Unique and Its Property, all about how the individual, everything that would dominate the individual is a spook. So anything above you has no control over you. He was in a fight with this guy named Marx, who wrote the German ideology. And Marx wanted to control everybody and get rid of religion and persecute gays and, just be really sectarian and take away everybody's money and give it to everybody and force everybody equal, like in Cuba. And it kind of works at some level in China and Cuba, but it has to be a lot of authoritarianism to get there. It's more, the idea of liberty is that we, as individuals, would succeed and not hamper on others. But The Unique Property was an amazing book that changed my life. I was riding the bus after my accident and reading that book every day. I couldn't stop. But a lot of that stuff, when I learned that Mary Baker Eddy, like, here's the science and health book, right? I could even go there right now if I wanted to. There's a Wednesday thing, and she's a lady who took every verse in the Bible and translated it into her version of what it means to her, and it's called Health and Science. And the other one was Sylvester Graham was also a preacher who saw the idea of coming from religion and going to health, but other people saw health and went to use it to make a new religion that is focused on that health. Like even the Mormons, Joseph Smith was a fruitarian, and he was trying to spread that message, but he got in his own trouble for being a gold thief and telling people where claims are, and they came and killed him, and he killed a few of them. But people are really serious. That's one of the first people I met when I came here to Phoenix. Jeremy Ray, he's a Mormon, and he was disowned by his family. I'm like, what do they mean? They disowned you? That's wild. And he's like, yeah, because I wouldn't go on the mission. I wouldn't ride the bicycle. I wouldn't tell people about Ishmael, the precursor to Jesus that preached to the Native Americans and all this stuff. That's what the Mormons say. Because they have the golden tablets and they have, everybody's got their own thing, and it's kind of cool. I like to not be discriminatory so much against it, but try to understand the roots of it and how it connects and why people did that. And it was to start his own health group, his own health cult out in Utah,
Yeah.
But
those are cool books. I got to check those out. How about any that are very much specifically in the natural hygiene vein?
Oh yeah, like the one I say, Isaac Jennings. I can't find it right now, but it's called The Tree of Life. The Tree of Life was his first book.
That was written in the 1800s, right?
And I have another book here. It's called, where I can find it, It's called, I ordered on the internet recently, and it was a Ellen G. White book called Food and Diet. And I wanted to get that. It was really in a more religious kind of speaking way that was really interesting. But also I have all the vaccine exposed books, all the books about how those poisons injection has been a problem, and it's never been a solution, right?
Is there anyone that you'd recommend for someone listening now, like one of those books?
I have some really cool small ones. Once I get to this shelf here, they're really simple and small and fast, and they were like I have some books like here's like Natural Hygiene Handbook, like there's like a lot of books like this you can find on Amazon. That's what Amazon was the one who started suggesting me stuff, and I started to keep collecting like fruit, the food medicine for man, that was a good one. There's all kinds of good books. They just like Water Cure for Ladies, that's where it comes from. That's what I'm saying, is this water. It was really a women's rights movement. A lot of women are very influential in this natural hygiene movement. That's why you see a lot of like health glows. Even my friend Alexandria Kenny is like doing some really successful like class with Lauren White about the terrain theory, and that's a good way to learn too. When you learn, I got Antoine Béchamp books there too. Antoine Béchamp was this guy who saw with Royal Raymond Wright's microscope what's going on at this microscopic level. And he's like, what is this stuff moving around? Oh, that's the microsoma. That's like he called it. And that's like the germs. Those things are a cleanup crew. That's why knowing how bacteria and germs and viruses are just particles of DNA, how it all works, it's like really the more we understand. But Louis Pasteur stole his ideas and made it like you inject poison in yourself and it makes you immune. And no, that's not how it works, And your body is always fighting.
Didn't Pasteur even basically switch his whole tune up by the end of his life?
At the end of his life, he said Bernard was right. Bernard was a student of Pasteur, and he's like, yeah, you're right about everything. So at the end of his life, when he was deathbed, he totally admitted that he was wrong about everything, and he cheated and he lied. So it's like everybody doesn't want to admit that because these companies that came after World War II, the IB Farben and all these people in the oil industry and the pharmaceutical industry, I saw that years ago. Canada, Australia, and England were so enslaved by these pharmaceutical industries and following along with their forced guidelines to make us have this program. Remember when Fauci applied for the patent and he lost it? They said, no, Moderna's had that patent since 2013. So this thing is a planned epidemic from way back in the day, and the Ukraine was invaded, and they're saying, oh, look at these biolabs. They have records and all the connections to Wuhan. All that stuff was happening, and it's all record, and it's all proven. It's just a total scam. And it's totally to take our power away from us, but we're beyond it now, I think. And I'm really glad to be in Arizona because we had Doug Ducey, and the first day this started, he made the no mask law. He's like, no way. No mask law is it. So we don't have the right to not wear a mask.
Nice. Yeah, because the scientific medical establishment is so funded by corporate interests and the bankers that they really do try to take our power away from us. Every attack that comes through the media is in a way to take power away from ourselves. But that's why I love natural healing and natural hygiene and natural health, is that it gives all the power back to us. It allows us to be in complete control of our health and our disease. But with great power comes great responsibility. You sort of have to then step up and make some lifestyle changes, which is really hard.
Oh yeah, that's what the Pythagorean 5 are. Air, sunshine, water, rest, and poise. So poise is mental and physical well-being. It's like knowing your limits. Don't go above them. Don't go beyond them. Get enough sleep. Don't stay up too long. Like don't eat too much. Don't eat too little. Once you find your balance, everything is key, and you just move forward with that, and you meet your needs. That's why I like nonviolent communication. Everything connects. Like in the philosophy of Pythagoras is the unity principle, and that's where that golden ratio and those 5 things come from. But those 5 things expand. Oh, you got the book right there. I just gave that book to my girlfriend. She's borrowing it right now. I'm like, I want her to learn that, to have the tools and the power to have empathy with people so they can resolve their conflicts. And she's got conflicts. She's got people breaking her bike rims, and I'm got to go right now to the bike shop and get her some new rims.
Oh, man.
But I'm trying to be helpful, and I'm standing up to these people, X's, whatever you want to call them. They're aggressive, but I use the nonviolent communication tools of empathy, observation, feeling, needs, requests to get them to know that I have those needs they have too, and if they didn't have their needs met, I would feel just as bad as they do, So I understand, But there's other, strategies and tactics to achieve that. It's just to be open instead of to be so frustrated. Some people let their feelings control their actions, but like that book teaches, all our actions, our thoughts, and our feelings are our own, and our needs are the ones that are shared. So we got to go back to what the need is, connect that, and then understand each other's feelings based on what we don't and do have, and then make a strategy or tactic to achieve it. And there's millions of them. If we cooperate and work together, the earth is going to be beautiful. And that's what the South Americans for 6,000 years were planting fruit trees all across the jungle so they'd have something to survive. So I feel like the nature, if we understand and we work with nature, it's going to make us thrive. We're just here because of nature. We are part of nature. All of us are connected. That's what the unit principle is. All of us have that same frequency. We're all one. It's so simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nature is the answer. And it's so ironic that the technocracy is the opposite of nature, and they're coming in and they're the most dominant, loudest force. And we're moving towards it, just as fast as they can possibly make it happen. But there is this counter movement, this counter culture of nature and natural health, natural hygiene, and natural relationships, natural living, natural birthing, natural feeding. And I think you're right. Like that can't be fucked with. That can't be taken away.
The First Amendment rights guarantee it. We're like guarantee the rights, and like maybe it's liberty. America's seen as authoritarian and forcing our way on the world. But if the world accepts, I don't like the one world government. But everybody's autonomous, of course. But we're in solidarity, though. It's just like what Food Not Bombs is. We're chapters of people who take excess food. 99% of food is just thrown away, or whatever, 90%, whatever percent it is. The majority of food is just thrown in the trash can and thrown away, not even composted properly. I love composting. And then, like, what we do is we take all that, would be thrown away from the shelters, and they give it to us for free. Because what else is going to happen to it? It's going to be in the trash. So we take all, it's not the prettiest stuff, it's second rate, but we clean it up, we prepare it for homeless people. So every Sunday we've been doing it at the park, and there's thousands of chapters in the world, and it's 42 years old as of yesterday, Food Not Bombs, and it's an anarchist group that just prepares food for people in need. And we're, everybody's happy, everybody's full, and we're all working together, and it's beautiful. There's always extra. We live in abundance. We start collecting what exists, like those dates that are unedible, uneaten, and the mesquite pods is sweeter than sugar. And I love carob, but mesquite is definitely sweeter. And that was another one, number one staple food of this valley in Maricopa was mesquite. And we're just letting the trees grow like they're pretty, annoying when you rake up the pods, but those pods are food.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if there's one thing I want anyone to take away from this, what I'll take away from this is that there is abundance everywhere in this life. That's how it was created. You can grow your own food forest, and we're not saying that you have to or that you should.
Urban gardening is going to save us. If we don't urban garden, we maybe will fight each other till death, and that would be ugly. We'll go cannibalistic, just like the monkeys. When they have trauma, when they're looking for aggression or assert dominance, they will eat each other, and that's not pretty, and they don't need to do that if there wasn't the problems. But so we solve the problems, we avoid that tragic kind of behavior that's going to suicide us. We are looking like we're headed to be misanthropically euthanized and go extinct, and that's not pretty unless we step it up and we care about ourselves and a future, like a lot of people are anti-natalists right now. A lot of people are what's called, I like the idea of I have the book here, it's called the something method of veganism, the abolition approach. The abolition approach is not even owning animals. Like I like the idea of sanctuaries, but I don't want to own and be responsible for another being that was unfairly created, and it probably isn't happy about if it knew its own history and its own manipulative patterns that got it to where it is.
That's why I think Earthlings is such a good documentary. One of the chapters is on the pet industry. A lot of things I just had, my eyes weren't open to that until I watched that documentary, which you can see at nationearth.com if anybody wants to expand.
Another good one that I thought was What the Health is a really good movie to watch. It covers all the issues.
To expand their empathy, nationearth.com. Check out Earthlings. What did you just mention? What the Health?
I'll type it in again. I'll type it in the chat. It's called What the Health.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. I uploaded that to YouTube a long time. I've been banned 13 times on YouTube. I'm so deplatformed and cancel cultured. It's so funny. I'm like, this sucks. I got to make a BitChute or a Rumble and just kind of go again, but it's like at least Instagram is still here. And I have my Instagram as my kind of record of my photos and what I've done from my camera. And it's what it is. And Facebook is just drama so much. It's groups and it's management. It's like little war on Facebook. Everybody gets to interact, but then there's regulation with AI, and anybody complains about anybody gets the robots to attack them. Their enemies. Everybody gets picked on by their computer adversary, and it's totally suppressive. That's what's really driving everybody crazy more than all this lockdowns and like masking that gives them plastic in their lungs, and that's horrible. Like blood clots from our mRNA that's going to make something that's going to make an autoimmune reaction. Anything that makes an autoimmune reaction and causes a rise in white blood cells, that's your body protecting itself, and that's a really good sign that if you don't do that or avoid that, you won't have a problem. Because my blood pressure has always been the best. My blood sugar has always been the best. Anyone who sees me at any doctor is like, wow, how did you get your B12 so high? How did you do all this stuff? And I'm like, I'll tell you, but you don't care and you don't want to listen, but blah, blah, blah. And they don't care or listen. And they're like, oh, this guy's a freak, and put him in the crazy house, and he's talking about eating semen and vaginal fluid. And I'm like, dude, 69, healthy, peer-reviewed. You can't deny it.
So let me ask you maybe one more thing. What does a normal day of eating look like for you? So you got your juice in the morning, but give me like a couple examples.
I like to wait and not
like a
start eating.
breakfast, lunch, dinner. Like, what does your day look like for food?
I like to not start eating until it gets a little bit later, 11 o'clock, when I really start grumbling. My stomach is like, okay, we cleaned out the last nights, and I don't like to eat like after dark much at all, but I will if I didn't eat anything earlier. But I like to make 2 bigger meals of simpler fruit. So like as much of one kind of fruit as I can and get, like an orange I just did, that's ideal. If I can get only like coconut water or only this watermelon that's right here and just eat that as a whole meal, that nothing digests better than just a papaya, just prickly pear juice only, a quart of it, 2 quarts of it. That's the perfect. I never had better digestion than prickly pear juice, honestly. And papaya is amazing too. But so is watermelon. Those are my first choices. Coconut water. If I could choose first things, those are the things I would choose first.
Nice.
But then if I'm going for something else, I want to make like sub-acid fruits like papayas and mangoes, apples, pears, things with cores. Those mix really good with sweets or sub-acids. So bananas are definitely a staple. I could eat just a 10-banana meal. I was like #1 on 30 bananas a day until Freely and Durrider banned me because I wouldn't go along with their raw to a 4 cooked program. I stood up to them and they, fuck you, you're out of here, man. You're not playing our game. And I was like, people were blowing up on that. Even Doug Graham's made a video, and it's called something about health. What is it called? Something about our health, our diet. But it's about how when you mix complex and simple carbohydrates together, it causes a TNT reaction, and it's tumultuous. Yeah, our gut's blowing up. It's like when you put a bean in, you're putting carbs and protein, and everything that we kind of know from the 1800s came from a food combination and experimentation with physiology. That's why our book, the Life Science Manual, is called the Life Science Manual of Physiology, because it's a study of the human body and the rate of digestion and what happens with the natural products of nature. Okay, this digests faster, this digests good together, like subacids and sweets, bananas and apples, or you can put apples with acids, like citrus is an acidic fruit, pineapple is an acid fruit, kiwi is an acid fruit. So kind of mixing those combinations, having the fruit combination chart is almost anybody, that would be the #1 thing I'd suggest anybody to do. Just get a food combination chart, print it out, just put it on your wall. Then you kind of have the idea, then go to the bulk store, wherever they're selling the cheapest fruit in the ads for the week, buy as much of whatever is on sale as you like, and then kind of combine those with the combination chart. That's pretty much the way I did it. Cool. And then it went from there, and I never looked back, and it worked great, and I never had a problem.
Cool.
And the more I explore, and the more I try new things, and the more I learn, even now I'll mix this and this together and see what happens, because it's all about science. Just like Christian Science, that's what their approach to science means. It's metaphysical. It means anything we think we can do. It's like we're all Jesus. The energy of Jesus. Jesus isn't a real person. It's just really a woman named Isa, who was a traveler, who was a student of the Pythagorean school. And there was 9 of these schools throughout the whole Mediterranean. And of course they were burned down, just like Wigmore was burned down, and just like Hawes was burned down. And just like, I don't know, I don't really like Clements and what he did in Florida and try to name his place the same name, because he's anti-fruit, trying to sell supplements and green powders. And I like the idea of making all those fractured foods that Doug Graham calls them and refining them. You're taking away the life energy from them and separating the water parts, the different parts. Even when I'm dehydrating, that's not ideal. I'd rather eat the fresh food. Fresh, whole, and ripe were my rules for so long, and I love it. And I'll play with fermentation. I've fermented things, and I like to do it without salt, like Eve Zeiler, my ex-girlfriend, who doesn't want me to mention her name, which I think it's actually good that I mention her name, because then she gets reps, not just 12 views for her videos, because she's actually killing it. And I told Goldhammer, put her on the Raw Food Show with AJ. She's got the knowledge, and she said I'm the only person who would make the stuff that she would eat, and she loves it.
Wait, are you talking about Alan Goldhammer?
Alan Goldhammer, that's right. She's a scientist for Alan Goldhammer, and she's from Germany and half Spanish, and she's following natural hygiene to the T, but she's playing with fermentation. We're doing that together, and the making like seaweeds and stuff. Just like Dorit gonna invite me to the California Fruit Festival. She's showing algae and stuff, and cool. DHA, different things we can do in nature and eat plant foods that are abundant.
Yeah,
they're totally available.
The only way I know Alan Goldhammer is from a video. He was on the Rich Roll podcast and talked about his fasting clinic in California.
Speaking of Rich Roll, Rich, you're talking about Rich Roll. I got the Vegan Traveler here. The Vegan Traveler used to come on You Now, and he's like a nemesis of the vegan cheetah. He'd come on there and troll the vegan cheetah, and he's the personal chef of Gary Knowles, traveling personal chef. He calls out the vegan traveler. He was kind of out of whack. He loved my ideas of fruit, but he wasn't doing it, of course, just like AJ's not doing it. She tried for a year, doesn't know why she can't do it, but she's getting all these interviews with people showing how you can successfully do it. And hopefully we're going to teach each other. Don't do the high-fat way, you fail. Don't, cause diabetes. Don't, undereat. Don't overeat. It's all so simple.
Well, I wasn't talking about Ritual. I was talking about Alan Goldhammer. So I heard about his fasting clinic in California. And so I think even the title of the video is like, the incredible 30-day water fasting cure. Like, can you survive a 30-day water fasting cure? But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that idea of water fasting for multiple weeks is sort of at the core of this natural hygiene movement, which is clean out the body, don't add any excess garbage because it's just going to create catabolic waste. And so the whole idea of eating fruit supports the idea of fasting, which is to let your digestive system rest, reserve energy. And that's the whole idea.
90% of our energy is going to digestion. 90% of the energy of a fruit goes to fuel our brain. So we're going to fuel our brain, and we're not going to overburden our digestion, and we're going to feel amazing. I don't want to lose my uncanny feelings. I would never want to lose it. Like, I couldn't even imagine going to put poison. I mean, I've experimented. I'm not going to lie and say I've never been not perfect, and I wanted to try the impossible. I wanted to try the beyond, and I digested all right, but nothing special, nothing to write home about. It stinks, and it's just refined carbohydrates, beets, peas, and coconut. Okay, you could do that yourself. Yeah. Like my friend Enzyme333, he's making amazing raw foods in Hawaii. He's in Canada, actually, Alberta.
Oh, he's snowboarding. He's that snowboarding guy. I like him.
Yeah, snowboarding, yeah, he's amazing. I love his stuff. He guested me for a long ass time. We talked forever, man. I got so many Rasta friends, like white Rasta friends like that. Those are the people who told me to go vegan, like that's my crew. Those people are the ones who taught me Ital Vital, and then I make all these connections between all these movements. It's all the same thing. It's just the principle of unity in nature that comes from the school, and it's so simple. Like, let's start more spas. Let's start more sanitariums. Let's create this, I love this Phoenix thing. We just take over a backyard, put all these trailers, and make a communal living. And what are we going to do? All the things are going up in price, double, triple, quadruple. Gas is going to be $10. Like, what? We got to do something. We're all riding bikes. We don't have cars.
Yeah. Unity. I like it, man. Well, we're going to stop here because I got to roll.
Oh, sweet, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Thanks for sharing all your insight and some of the books. This will be back up so people can look through it and check out the books.
The last sip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Get that citrus in you.
And your body is so efficient. Our body is so efficient. That's the principle of hygiene. Everything is so intelligent, more than we know. It's bigger than religion and science. That's why I keep thinking about it. There's all these things they didn't know, and even we don't know. That's why I've always been agnostic and bright worldview. It's like what we don't know keeps us going. It gives us purpose and meaning to learn more. And we're always going to learn more, but sticking with what we already know and the truths and working more to perfect it, we're definitely growing and we're definitely improving. And people are, like they said, plant-based people, 80% of them didn't even have a symptom from this pandemic they played into place. It's because, we have the things that are alkaloids in our body from plants that are never going to allow us to have all those experiences. Those things are from toxemia, heavily what I called acute or chronic healing crises that we initiate to get through that cleaning of the body, because the body cleans itself. We have self-intelligence. Whenever he says all the 16 laws talk about our intelligence, and that's so beautiful. That Russell Thatcher-Troll law, oh, look at that list. That's really good too. It's so deep and it's so mind-blowing. All of it blows my mind, and I keep learning more, and I'm like, it never ends. And they're like old people from the 1800s. They knew more than us, and they talked better than us, and I really enjoy what they're writing.
And they weren't censored as much as we are.
Yeah, everybody was an author. Even my great-grandfather, Daniel Rapine, he was the first mayor of Washington, D.C. by Madison, flipped a coin, and he was in the Germantown battle to chase those people to Louisiana and chase them back to England or whatever. So he was gifted a bookstore when he was 18, like a printing press, and he started a bookstore on the Capitol Mall, and he was the postmaster general for the Congress for the rest of his life. And that was what he did. So he's like my grandmother's grandfather, right?
Cool, man. Well, interesting connections, and thanks for your insight again. Let's talk again soon.
Yeah, stay healthy, eat fresh, and love yourself, man. Thank you so much, man.
Love it.
For guesting.
All right.
I love it. Thanks so much.
Talk to you soon.